Welcome to another episode of Come Together. And we're live. We're back with another episode. Beth Mielbrecht, welcome. So happy to have you here. How are you?
Delighted to be here. Thanks, Ephraim.
I'm so happy to have you on. I came across your profile on Podmatch, and I was fascinated by the transition from your engineering background to your health. I guess your health focus now, and your energy and health focus now. And so, and I guess the truth is that 50 minutes feels like it's perfect for kind of a narrative and a story. So I guess can you want to start by telling me a little bit about your background and where you're from and how this happened?
Oh, sure. So,
Great.
yeah, you're right. I am a mechanical engineer. I'm an engineer, and engineers like to solve problems. And that is just a characteristic of people who are really practical, grounded, see a problem, want to create a solution, like to build things. So your engineers are the ones that build your cars and they build your bridges and your buildings. And then all the boring stuff, like make sure there's heating and cooling and all of that practical stuff. And I love doing that. And I went to school, studied engineering. I am also a licensed professional engineer in the state of New York. But I've always been fascinated by health. I've been a student of health for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to switch to focus on health and being a health detective when I noticed that my friends and family were very accepting of their health limitations. I would hear things like, I have a migraine again this week. It happens every week. I don't know why that is. I guess that's just life.
Mm-hmm.
Or I have an ache and pain in my hips, and I'll just have to wait till I get a hip replacement someday. There's nothing that can be done, right? And I was pulling my hair out because, yes, you can know why you're getting migraines. Yes, you don't have to live like that. Yes, you can heal the cartilage in your joints so that you can move without pain. You don't have to accept that. And that's when I started on a journey to figure out, well, what is an easy solution? What is the best way to find out why people are hurting, and they don't need to just accept that
Mm-hmm.
that's the way life is going to be.
Yeah, beautiful. So you take that same kind of mentality that made you an engineer, and that same kind of train of thought, and you applied it to the people that you care about around you, and said, "Hey, if there's a way that I could solve problems in one way, then there's got to be another. You could just take the same school of thought and apply it to something else."
Exactly. It's the same process, and pattern recognition will get you so far. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you know how to solve things based on, you've seen this situation before, let's try the same thing. That works really well with emergencies when you have an acute injury or there's been an accident of some kind. People know how to assess, how to treat, what's the best thing. Yes, that is super important. But if something's been lingering for a long time and those basic patterns of health techniques haven't helped you, you might want to look a little closer. And so that's when people come to me, when the things they've tried don't work anymore. And so yeah, as my
Do you see a
background is
lot of that?
about digging in. Do I see? Yes, people come to me as last resort, which is they've tried a bunch of things and nothing's working. They don't know why. And they're tired with the traditional answers that they're getting. They're tired of
Mm-hmm.
going to different specialists. They've got one for every body part, and it's not making sense, and they don't feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just did an episode the other day with a pediatric obesity surgeon, which was really interesting, and he was a very, very sweet guy. But one of the things that we were talking about, or one of the things that he said, and and I guess he was specifically referring to obesity. He was saying that there's obviously many other factors other than what people today feel like it's rah-rah lifestyle, and he says it's a little bit more nuanced, or a lot more nuanced than that. Um, but it felt that what he was essentially kind of giving into the fact, um, and maybe he's right, as you know, maybe he's right to do this. Maybe he's just observing human nature. Is like people aren't going to just change their lifestyles forever, and like that kind of feels like a little bit of a sad or morose kind of perspective to, or conclusion to come to, which is that, listen, at the end of the day, it's so overwhelming and it's so exhausting and it requires so much effort to just change your lifestyle that even people that manage to do it for a little bit, you can't expect them to do it forever. So like, what are you going to do? And I'm not. I wasn't really sure what I thought about that. I think that, again, part of the value of the show is to allow people to express opinions. And I think that I'm sure that what he's saying is grounded in 20, 30 years of experience, and with obesity, with people that suffer from obesity. So I'm sure he has more information than I do. But it just kind of felt like a little bit more of a glass half empty, or like, that kind of perspective. Do you find that people are willing to really kind of change their outlook once they start seeing positive results?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Because, yes, there is culture. There is a whole lot of influences that want to keep you on the same path that you're on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if it becomes important enough to you, you'll make that change. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if you're sensitive to coffee, even though everyone drinks coffee and it's such a part of culture, if you realize how it makes you feel and how it affects your sleep, that might just be for you. Somebody else might be fine with it, but if that's you, you'll easily in one day say, I'm done.
Yeah.
It could be alcohol. It's so socially acceptable to drink alcohol. Everyone's wearing these wearables. They've got rings, watches, all kinds of gadgets. Track your sleep. You know what's happening. You'll
Mm-hmm.
know, is sleep more important?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sometimes it's more important to be social and go out and drink with my friends, and other times it's not. But you need to
Mm-hmm.
know and make that decision. I think that by the time people start working with me, they know that they're responsible for their lives. Things don't just happen to them. They're responsible. And
Mm-hmm.
then they can decide if they want to make changes. And if that's with what this doctor was saying about their lifestyle, about their food choices, sure, it is. It could be seen as harder to prepare food at home,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so much more enjoyable. There's so many more positive
Yeah.
things. So I think that he might be looking at a large swath of the population who is in crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has that perspective. But I
Certainly.
say people need to, they go for it. It's totally worth it to make the changes and change your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to agree. I think and it's interesting because there's almost like two types of rationale when you're talking to people. You could talk to a group of people where you kind of make broad, generalizations, and then there's talking to the individual, and giving that kind of, like the famous metaphor of the tree and the forest. You can't look at the tree and pay attention to the whole forest at the same time, and you can't look at the whole forest and notice too much about one particular tree at one time either. And so yeah, life is about kind of shifting your perspective. Which one are you looking at? Are you looking at the broad spectrum, or like the zoomed in individuals? And I think that, like what you just said, he's talking about the crisis when it comes to a broad population of people. But when you're dealing with individuals, I mean, I have to believe that you say you can make that change. Like, you can make that change as as a person. I found that yesterday. I just started teaching again, so the summer ended and school's back up again. And I walk into class and I got a class full of ninth graders, and they've already gotten the notion in their head that they're the dumb class because they're ranked as basic or whatever. I'm looking at them like, You guys are so with it. You guys are going to do great this year. I'm so excited for you guys to be able to really like. I was like, you may not be sitting at your desk for all 45 minutes of the day of the class, but you guys are going to learn a lot. I could tell, and you could just feel the shift in the room where like where, you know, where there would be individual kids that really like you saw like it went into their heads that hey, I am capable of doing this, and then the other kids like yeah okay, what are you talking about? But it was far more. It was far more positive than negative, and I feel like people respond accordingly if we have that kind of "you can do it" mentality. People are like, "Yeah, I could," you know.
I love that. And it's so important. I'm so glad that you're doing that and you're conveying that message. I tell people you can heal. Your body wants to
Mm-hmm.
heal. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they think that's impossible. No, these bad things keep happening. It's not my fault. I can't do anything about it. My body's falling apart. It's attacking me. No, it's not. It wants to heal. And I will
Mm-hmm.
hold that. Just like you're holding it for those ninth graders, you're holding that baton that they can learn, they can
Yeah.
excel, they can and enjoy it while they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I hold that for people with health, that you can heal.
That's awesome.
You really can.
How'd you get started? You start by reading podcasts, books, your own life, your own family. How'd you get started in terms of the health journey and like how you get it so into it?
I guess it's always with myself. So
Uh-huh.
it just started with myself as a observing how I grew up and the food that I ate in my prepared in like McDonald's was a special treat. And I would get
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's and like, wow, like I was a teenager noticing like, wow, these French fries are really addictive. What is it
Mm-hmm.
about that? Or, back in the day, iceberg lettuce was a vegetable and that was sufficient, and then just noticing that and how I grew up through growing up. I think I've been every diet, I've tried everything. I love experimenting on myself. So I've been gluten-free. I've been a vegan. I've been vegetarian. I
Wow.
have been, just food that I get from the farmer's market, just food that I prepare. I have then gone to just making my own bone broth and meat that I find from local farmers. So everything. And then I'd see, well, how do I feel when I do that? And I've learned that one dogma is not right, even for me at all times of my life. That
Cool.
when I am busy raising my child, when I was pregnant, when I am changing into my later years, I have different nutritional needs. And if
Mm-hmm.
I don't adapt what I want, so, when I go to the farmer's market, I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to buy all of these apples or spinach. I learned to listen to it. So it started
Mm-hmm.
with me, but then it also was with my son. I have one son, he's 23 now,
Nice.
and my whole journey into energy medicine started with him.
Mm-hmm.
So it started with I was a new mom, he was an infant. So you have children, you know what this is like. Your baby is sleeping, and you're
Yeah.
going to put your baby down in the crib to keep sleeping and don't want the
Yes.
baby to wake up. So I know this is audio only, but I have my hands cupped. So I put his little body down and then I back out of his nursery. And now my hands are up and I'm backing away. Like, did I do it? Did I do it? Is he still sleeping? I put him down. He's still sleeping and I'm backing away. And so my hands are raised up like this. And I'm halfway down the hallway and I notice that it feels like there's a steel cable in between the palms of my hands and his little body. Like we're connected. What is that feeling? I had never felt that before. I had never felt a feeling of energy in my hands before.
Mm-hmm.
And as life would have it, then all of these things came into my world without me even asking for it. I took Reiki classes. I learned about energy. It's just crazy how it all happens. But basically, my little boy was telling me, hey, mom, you need to up level to take care of me. I need you to understand energy. I need you to understand me better because this is what I need to succeed. And so
When did he tell you that?
as
That
he
sounds like a
grew up,
pretty mature thing to say.
he didn't, I
Oh,
think
he
that's
did.
what he
You
was.
sensed it.
He didn't, I mean, yeah, that's what I think he sensed. No, he did not have words. He's a boy. No,
Gotcha.
he did not have words.
Gotcha.
That's what I think he was encouraging me to do, so that
Mm-hmm.
whenever, as he grew up and through his life, it was always hands on. And even though I took classes and eventually I became a Reiki Master-Teacher, and then I took other energy type work and got other certifications, it was always about, could I sense where he was imbalanced? And he was very, very receptive to that. That was the primary method of helping him. And then also teaching him, how did he feel in his body? After he ate lots of bread, he had a stomach ache, and encouraging him, okay, how does that feel? And developing language around that. And eventually he grew out of that. Of course, he's a teenager. He ate tons of pizza. And then what happens? It becomes it changes how he reacts to different things. So growing up and going through that journey with him on how to teach somebody else how to pay attention to their body, because I realized that I'm so in tune with my own body and what feels right to me, it's a little unusual. And I worked with him, and he was naturally born that way. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how I got into health. And then I began to notice that some people would eat certain foods and then the next day say, oh, I don't feel well, but not realize that it had any connection to the strange combination of foods they
Sure.
ate the day before. They
I
had
went
no
years without noticing it.
realization. Yes. And I thought, how strange. Like, I would put one bite of food that didn't agree with me in my mouth, and I would notice it right away. So I realized that, okay, people have different delays and realizations within their body. So that made me a
The
natural for
it's
exploring
pretty.
health.
Does your and how receptive was your son to all these ideas as he was growing up? 'Cause he's 23 now, right? So, as a teenager, as a young adult, or what was his? Was he like, okay, mom, kind of thing? Because my mom, when I was in high school, my sister had psoriasis, and she changed her diet, and it totally helped. And I used to have terribly dry skin and dandruff, and I always blamed it on the seasons. I always blamed it like, okay, well, it's cold in New York, and I mentioned I went to college in Binghamton, and I'm from Rockland, so we got cold winters, and I would always, and then with the change of seasons, it always, I'd also get like I get aggravated skin. And I refused to. And my mom would be like, "You have to change your diet. The amount you're drinking is not good. The amount of pizza you're eating is not good. The amount of garbage that you put." And like, Mama, come on. It's not. What are you talking about? It's not my food that I have dandruff. Okay, don't be ridiculous. And I mean, fast forward a couple of years later, and it took me till I was like doing my own work and figuring it out my own way. I'm like, full circle. I'm like, I call my mom, like, oh my God, you're right. You were right the whole time. I'm so sorry. You were right. You were right. You were right. You were right. Youth is wasted on the young. I feel like an idiot. I'm sorry. And now what do I do about making sure my kids don't do this? Because I was like, I don't want them to go another 5-10 years like I did and suffer like that. So how does your son feel about all this?
It's it's the exact same story. Exact same
Yeah.
story. All the sugar. So why, I would talk to him, well, how do you feel? Did you notice your skin is breaking out? What are you eating?
hmm
He worked at also in New York, there's Wegmans everywhere. He worked at
Yeah, I love
Wegmans, and
Wegmans.
and there's a bulk candy aisle. Gosh, once he
Yeah.
had his own money, you could go buy as much candy as you want, or after Halloween, half price Halloween candy. Like, yes, he had to explore that all himself, but because he had grown up with knowing how things felt in his body, he was able to notice, like, wow, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
And yeah, he did go through all those years. Peer pressure is intense,
Enormous.
and
hmm
you want to be just like everyone else. And so I get what you started at the beginning with the obesity doctor for young people, it is intense, but it's a little bit more normalized now to be speaking up. And that's what I hope to
Yeah.
share with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I think it is.
he went through exactly the same thing as you.
That's great. It's good to know that it's a young man's journey, but it also makes me a little nervous about my son. But I, like you said though, and I do believe this. Like for example, my wife found it. My wife started. She loves this now. She started milling her own flour and then using it as the base for,
Wow.
bread or cookies or waffles or pizza or whatever it is. And like, from and she's like, I can't even tell you how much nutrition's in this flour that I'm milling by myself that that we're deprived of in commercial bread and pizza and stuff like that. And the preservatives apparently that they put that allows the bread to stay fresh for so long actually eats away at the potential nutrients that we would be getting otherwise. So she's like, the food's not going to be fresh for a month like it is in the supermarket, but we're just making it for the house anyway. So we'll have it for dinner one night, and then we'll Saturday night's pizza night, we'll make our own pizza with our own. So I'm kind of hoping that by introducing this at an early age, that his body, consciously or unconsciously, will say, hey, sure, this is not something that you should be eating right now, or like, okay, like this is acceptable, this is pretty good. And I hope that it kind of is able to tell him that in the future. um what other aspects of energy, because people hear energy healing and they kind of take a step back. There's a very strong disassociation. Like when I tell my high schoolers that we're going to do poetry, and they're like, poetry? And I'm like, you didn't even know what poetry is. I was like, that feeling? And then I described to them yesterday. It was so funny. I was like, imagine the feeling when you walk into a pizza shop and the smell of that brick oven just smacks you in the face, and then you smell the flour, and you feel the flour in the air that's underneath the dough. And they're like, yeah, and like they're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Like, that's poetry. I was like, whatever I just said to you, that's poetry. It's not a bad thing. It's gonna be okay. You're gonna be fine with it. So can you elaborate a little bit on the energy healing and what the foundations are and what the ideas are?
Absolutely. Yeah. Energy healing is popular in some circles, but really distrusted in others. I don't use it a lot. I don't use the phrase energy healing because of that reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's people who do yoga and lead retreats in Bali and Mexico. And that's true. Energy healing does happen in that way. I like energy medicine. To me,
Mm-hmm.
energy medicine has many proven science-based methodologies. One of them
Okay.
is homeopathy. Homeopathy is using diluted substances that make a reaction in your body, and that encourages increased communication and healing. It's a trigger for your body that says, this is what I need. Homeopathy, there's one. Another one is acupuncture. So
Mm-hmm.
some people are not sure that we have energy running in our bodies, but we do. And they go in highways called
Sure.
meridians. And acupuncture's been around for so long. You stimulate points on the body, and then it unblocks, it encourages healing. So that is also energy medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Reiki, that's hands-on healing. It can be done at a distance or in person. That's energy medicine as well. So
And how
energy
does Reiki
medicine has
work?
these things. Reiki.
Or
Okay.
what's the idea behind it?
So here it is. Every single person on this planet is an energy healer. All of us. We all, we have intentions. We can use our hands. We put our hands on our kids. We put our hands on our heads when we don't feel well. We
You high
know
five
to
teammates?
rub, high five. You run into a doorway, you rub your arm. You naturally use energy healing. Reiki is a format that was channeled or downloaded by a Japanese man in the 1930s. So it has a Japanese name. And because he's a Japanese man, it came through in his culture, which said, let's have a procedure. let's have a step-by-step process. Let's have some symbols, and all the symbols are Japanese characters. We don't need any of that. It's a good framework for people who want to learn, but once you know that you can feel it, you don't need any structure whatsoever. All
Wow.
energy healing is a format to get you comfortable with trusting your own intuition, being able to be clear and use the energy of the universe, not your own. You know, there's a difference between giving of yourself and giving from
Your
the
surroundings.
universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so Reiki is hands-on healing or distance healing, and you could follow a format or not. I don't, once I learned the format, I left it behind. I just say, hey, this is what we need to do today. And so when I was a Reiki practitioner, it was all free form. But it was nice to have a framework to learn, to get started. Just like when you're going to teach your students poetry, you might have some guidelines or here's a framework you could follow to get you started. We could follow a haiku, or we could follow, I don't know, some other format. I'm thinking of iambic pentameter, something like, hey, there is something that is really hard to do, or it's really easy to do, but you don't have to do any of those things to talk about pizza as poetry. So
Yeah.
same with energy. And that's how I explain Reiki.
So, what applications would you use Reiki in? If someone how would you determine which tool in your toolbox do you use? Because I feel like when you have so many
So
different
right
options.
now,
Yeah.
yeah.
Please.
So right now, I don't see any clients one-on-one for Reiki as a standalone practice at all. That is, right now I use Reiki as part of what I do in my precision healing method program. I use Reiki when I'm doing trapped emotion release. So I try to combine all of the tools that I have into one program. And there's one aspect that I do called trapped emotion release. And for that, I call it switching into Reiki mode, which is just switching into connecting with my guides, my teachers, my clients' guides and teachers, and asking to release something that they don't need anymore. Something that they have said, hey, I'm ready to release this horrible feeling. I don't want it anymore. Then I go in and help facilitate that. And that's one aspect of what I do in the precision healing method.
That would apply to something like an emotional pain or a trauma that manifests in your body that you're trying to alleviate or get rid of. That's what it would be.
So there's two types of emotional issues that I help my clients with. One is how you're feeling right now. You've got grief, or you're stressed, or there's you're just struggling in some way, and there could be all kinds of reasons what that is. So that's your day-to-day, and you're dealing with this. That needs different support than something that's been buried from a long time ago that is just an underlying dread. You experienced something horrible a long time ago. You thought you were over it, but every once in a while you're like, what is this? Why does this fear come up? To me, I like it because I'm an engineer. I want the quickest and fastest solution. I am not a therapist. If you think you need to have therapy about this old issue, go see a therapist. That's definitely not my specialty. So when I find out that you don't even have to know what it is, because through bioenergetic testing, I will ask, is there something that needs to be released? Then if something comes up, then I will release it. And you may have a memory of it, or maybe you don't. So there's your current emotions, and then there's old stuck stuff. And you know what? Old stuck emotions tend to settle in areas of weakness in your body. So
Really?
when like things that don't heal, there's usually some emotions that are kind of tied up in it. If it just won't get better after you try everything, you've been to the physical therapist and like, but my back still hurts. Well, because there's an emotional component to it. So you can do all the exercises, do all the physical therapy, but you probably need to look at the emotions as well.
That's fascinating. That's so interesting. I What's fascinating, just reflecting for a minute in my own life, is that I am, but for a long time I was very fear driven my whole life, and that includes fear of physical confrontation as well. And I forced myself a couple of months ago to start taking jujitsu, and the starting to do jujitsu, right, which by definition means I'm using all parts of my body I have never used in my entire life. I was I've gone through in the last couple of months this like real legitimate period of working out a lot. I've been a whole other layer or dimension has been triggered, and I'm so curious if it has to do with this newfound physical expression. And I know that, and I've been grappling and working with and building and like, making breakthroughs in really really amazing ways. With parts of myself that I've really never been even able to look face to face at, and I'm putting that together also because my wife had gone a couple of months back to what's called a dance therapy class, and it was also that same notion, which is that our body stores and our body keeps trauma in different physical places, and by actual physical motions set to different music, you can actually kind of release it or access it and pinpoint it. And I really do believe in all this. I really think that, I mean, I think that anyone that's had these experiences these experiences are so profound and so clear and so tangible that like you can't ever say that you can't like you lose a lot of skepticism just based on your experience, which is really really cool.
I'm so glad you're doing that. The best way to move emotion and metabolize the emotion is through movement. Acknowledge
Hmm.
it and then move it out. So if you were feeling like, hey, this feels weird, but I'm going through jujitsu, and you kept shoving it down, you would just be compacting it and shoving it and keeping it there. But the fact that you're saying, hey, I acknowledge this, you're letting your body move it out, because right, your issues are in your tissues. So you can dance it out. Some people like all different ways. There's so many different ways to do it. It's not just one way. And that is great because now you are able to stand in a new place without being burdened by old stuff. And so, you know what I find out is sometimes it's not even your own stuff. Sometimes it's inherited. Sometimes it's absorbed from someone else. Uh, Sometimes the people's emotions aren't even their own. They're inherited or absorbed from somebody else. And so it's
Yes.
really good when you move your body and get those out. You don't need to carry other people's stuff.
I'm actually recording an episode next week, I hope, unless it's subject to change, but with someone that actually, a therapist that works with intergenerational trauma, which I'm really fascinated by because my own family history is both my mother's parents were survivors of the Holocaust. And so the type of household that she grew up in obviously was going to be pretty different than the typical American household or, typical, household that a lot of people are growing up with two survivors from such a, tragedy. And you can see very, very clearly, like what traits, and what perspective and what kind of attitudes are passed down out of like almost genetic necessity, out of biological necessity. It's really, really fascinating, and so like, it's so cool to think that certain events could mean so much that that your genes say, you know what, your children are going to need this, and your grandchildren are going to need this experience. So we're going to just like pass it along to them and make sure that it sticks with them because that's how important this is. It's so fascinating.
It is. And so emotions get passed down. Also, nutrient deficiencies get
Mm-hmm.
passed down. Environmental toxicities like
Mm-hmm.
heavy metals or pesticide residue, like they get passed down as well. And so being able to clean up your own body and take care of yourself, doing the best you can, is the best key for health. Looking at yourself from all perspectives. I don't think that there's ever an end to trying to figure out, how can I be healthier when you don't feel good? When you don't feel good or something's bothering you, there's so many avenues to explore. It's never just one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you work with any kind of practitioner, there's always more. And it's best to have an open mind because we're learning things all the time. That's fascinating that you're going to have a guest on about intergenerational
Yeah,
trauma.
yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about it. And I think that because there's also the vice versa, right? There are traits that, for my grandfather or my grandmother would have been far more necessary, and for me it's not useful to have. And so for me I have to discard that, even though genetically it's dispositioned in me. And then physically, actually, also the pediatric that the doctor that I spoke to the other day said, he said that there were studies that the amount of sugar that our bodies are like kind of used to and our ability to process it start from the first, I think, in the like from conception for the first 2 years that the baby's alive. So 9 months in the
Hmm.
womb, and then 2 years, and then when the baby turns 3, that's where the point gets set. But if even a mother that's carrying has to be conscientious as to what she's consuming, because she's passing that on to her, passing it on to the kid. And my wife gave birth just 4 or 5 months ago, thank God, and thank God everything was okay. But it was really, we were talking to the nurse, and the baby was 7'1", 7'2", and the nurse said she's been seeing babies that are 12, 13, 14 pounds at birth. And I'm like, I've never even heard, like 10 was considered massive when I,
Yeah.
when I was growing up and with my family. And she said that, that a lot of this has to do with genetics getting passed down from conception.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, congratulations to you and
But
your
thank
new
you.
little one.
Yes,
That's
yes, it's
great to
really
have a
exciting.
healthy baby. And, that brings up another point of nowadays when I hear from people who come to me and they say, I got my blood test back and it says I'm normal here, but not normal someplace else. Wait a minute. What does normal mean?
Mm-hmm.
Normal means that the lab company is comparing you to an average population. Do you want to be compared to an average population? Is that average
Right.
population healthy? It's not comparing it to healthy people. It's comparing it to an
Right.
average population. So, and is that the best indicator and the best marker? That's a whole nother story. But yeah, averages, you look at it, uh, clothing sizes, chair sizes,
Yeah.
things are changing based on how the population is evolving. Is that what you want to do?
Even
You
things
get
like
to make
daily
that decision.
recommended, we like average daily recommended sugar or carbs or whatever. I'm sure that the goalpost gets moved around. I mean, I don't know for certain, but I could just imagine that as time goes on, that that things change. Last question. I know you have to go in a couple of minutes. Last thing that I wanted to talk to you about, I think, is one of the more important things, or the more inspiring things, is how you had the courage to make such a significant change in your life, career change or profession change, or after having a whole career. Because I know that some things that most people, a lot of people I know at least, whether it's anecdotally with family or whether it's friends or things I read, is that people feel like you build till you're 30, maybe you're 40, and then like you kind of coast the rest of your life. And I personally disagree, but it's easy for me to say as a 30-year-old. Can you elaborate a little bit as to like what your whole experience was like for a couple of minutes?
Sure. Yes. I hope that I'm a different person tomorrow than I am today. I hope that I'm a different and better person next year than I
Mm-hmm.
am this year. I'm always looking to grow. I'm not afraid of making a change. I've been successful in everything I do. I have no reason to doubt that I wouldn't be successful in this new direction. Listen, there's plenty of work. People need solutions. I have a fearlessness and I have a vision and I see it so clearly. I'm confident in the results that I've gotten for my clients. The results speak for themselves and they've written testimonials for me. Whether or not this is the right business at the right time, whether it's popular, doesn't matter to me. I
Mm-hmm.
get people reaching out to me all the time saying, do you want to scale your business and scale it and grow up to these, enormous numbers? And I write back and I say, this is not a scalable business. This is me doing something I'm passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one with my clients. No,
Mm-hmm.
this is not a franchise. This is not replacing me with an AI tool. This is personal health coaching and bioenergetic testing. So I feel so strongly about it. And that vision is what carries me through. And there's plenty of times where it can be hard. It can be hard explaining something that's new to people who are based in the traditional mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So I always look for the success I've seen with myself and my family and my clients, and I stay grounded. I'm not looking for success as determined by LinkedIn or the internet. I'm looking
That's good.
for it as defined by what lights me up and
Mm-hmm.
have I made health transformations possible for people who didn't think that they could have health transformations, people who thought that they were stuck forever and nothing would ever change. And then they did.
Yeah.
That's what I thrive on. So my vision helps keep me grounded. And yes, if you want a highly scalable business where you can sell to a venture capitalist, this is not the right business. But if you want to
But
make a difference in people's lives, it is.
yeah. So what advice do you think you'd give someone that feels like, you know what, like for example, my mom, right? My mom my youngest brother's 14. He's just starting high school, which means the house is going to be empty for the first time in 30 years for her. Right? She has 6 kids, and she's used to being mama bear, and and she has grandkids that live nearby, but for the first time things are going to be quiet, and like she's like, well, what do I do at this point in my life? I'm 55. Whatever it is, and I I got a lot of life left. What do I? But I spent the last 30 years. How do I do this? What do you think?
Yeah. Uh, every day, say, what brings me joy? What do I want to learn? How can I take care of myself when I couldn't
Hmm.
have taken care of myself before? Is it walking? Is it weightlifting? What do I want to learn? So the first
Hmm.
step is she's not going to even know what she enjoys because her enjoyment is from giving to everyone else.
Hmm.
So it's describing and finding what she likes and learning that again. And at this time of her life, I mean, she is just getting started. All of that emotional and mental energy that she's given to you and your siblings, she now has to create something for herself. Maybe
Yeah.
her health is great and she doesn't even need to focus on that. Maybe there'll be some other passion. So the first question is, what lights me up? What brings me joy? How can I learn about that and do
Hmm.
that a little more? And if there's something in her health that she's been putting off, now's the time. She can start taking little baby steps towards movement and food and finding new things that bring her joy.
Beautiful. Beth, I really appreciate the time. I'm sorry the audio got a little choppy over there. I'm sorry about the technical issues, but this was really so much fun. Maybe we'll do part two a couple months down the line. This is so much fun. I feel like we could talk a lot more. And I really appreciate the time. I think that what you're doing is wonderful, and I think that you should keep it up, and you should have a lot of success. And this is really so nice getting to talk to you a little bit.
Thank you so much, Ephraim. Have a great day.
You too. Take care. We'll be in touch. Bye bye.
Bye bye.